there, welcome to another edition of Hidden Gems, the series, presented to you proudly by Window Cleaning Resource, windowcleaner.com, and my personal channel, The Window Cleanse on YouTube. So be sure to make sure that you're subscribed to both channels and that you have hit the bell so you don't miss a second of the action. Today we're going to be talking about abrasives, some sort of scrubbing abrasive, and this is an absolute must-have in your tool belt because you're going to run into situations where your T-bar is not going to provide enough scrubbing power. And so what I do for my own personal reference is I grade scrubbing power 1 to 10, 10 being the most, and just for the sake of argument, we're going to say that your scraper is a 10 when it comes to scrubbing power. Your scraper is going to take off just about anything except hard water stains. So, you know, the razor is a number 10 when it comes to scrubbing power. But some of these other products also provide a high level of scrubbing power. Your T-bars are probably, in my opinion, somewhere around a 5 with scrubbing power, and then your squeegee blade rubber even has some scrubbing power, and that might be around a 1 or a 2. So that gives you an idea of the range of powers. So let's get right into it. Let's get into the hidden gems here. All of these products are useful, but there's a number of hidden gems, and I'm going to get to the very best one that I found, and this is the Walnut Scrubber. Now, I'm going to we're going to talk about these hidden gems regardless of cost, even though you're going to see the prices come up on the screen. But this is about $1 a pad, I believe, a little bit above $1, and the scrubbing power on these is about a 9. I love the way that these perform. One useful thing that these do is that if you fold them in half, you can slide them. If you're doing commercial work, you get those bars on the doors and there's maybe just this much space there and you can't really get your hand in there. You could fold this in half. You could even fold it into thirds or quarters to give it some spring action. Stick it in there, make sure it's wet, and just run it back and forth. And because it has such great scrubbing power, you don't have to try to stick something in there to push it against the glass. It'll just take all the greasy fingerprints and whatever else is down there and get that nice and clean. So it doesn't rust, and it's made really high quality and feels like it's going to last a long time. So the pads come, I think, twice as big as this, and so I just cut them in half, and this to me is the perfect size, and so I put this right in my tool belt. By the way, it's nice to have a pouch in your tool belt that's solely dedicated for some sort of abrasive. Now the basic ones are your steel wool and your bronze wool. A lot of people enjoy using the steel wool. I don't. I've tried it for a while. I don't like how it rusts and then will get really crumbly, and then that rust will get on your tool belt. So I personally don't like the steel wool. I mean, it performs, the Quad Zero performs very well in the field, but I would pay the little bit extra for the bronze wool, because the bronze wool doesn't rust as quickly. I'll say it kind of gets ratty, but it doesn't rust. Here's an example of a bronze wool pad. So you can see how it gets kind of like nappy. And then this is what I would call a bronze wool sponge. And this too is useful in getting in between tight spaces and getting in there. It just doesn't have as much spring action as the walnut pad does. But I've been using these for years, and I really find a great value in them. I don't mind spending whatever extra it is on them. So that's my opinion on steel wool versus bronze wool, but other people would say use the steel wool. So I think it's just personal preference. Moving on, This is another nice little product here. This is the Woollett White Scrubby, and it's got a foam pad inside of it which holds water. That's a great feature. You want it to hold water. And just by way of contrast, this is the gripper, and it doesn't hold the water as well. And you can see that the pad is thick, somewhat thicker here, but, and this is very lightweight, by the way, too. We'll talk about this in a minute. But the Woollett pad also will slide behind those door bars to get in between there. It does have a scrubbing power. The Walnut pad, I would say, has a scrubbing power of about a 9. This too has a scrubbing power of about a 9. So these two are products that I had never used before, and they are going to be a part of my arsenal from this point forward. They have a permanent place on my tool belt, and so I would even prefer using these above bronze wool. So those are two hidden gems. This little guy right here is got a nylon mesh. It's the blue sponge with a nylon mesh, and you would think that it wouldn't be very durable. It's extremely light. I mean, this thing is as light as a feather. It virtually has no weight, but it does do a good job scrubbing, and it has held up pretty well. I mean, you can see that it has gotten considerable use. So the nylon mesh has held up. Again, this is not going to rust. It might feel a little cheap, but I think these are about a little over $1, maybe $1.50. And so I like these too. I don't like them as much as the other two scrubbers that we talked about, but I do like this. And so the sponge doesn't have a tremendous amount of stiffness to it. The sun keeps getting in my eyes. But this is a hidden gem right here. Another product that I had never used, but I was very pleased with it. I would say it has a scrubbing power of about, I would say about a 6. So the scrubbing power is not as great, but it's a step up from your T-bar. Let's move on to the Woollett knuckler. I think it's like a knuckler pad. The Woollett, hand pad. This is an interesting tool. I really like this one too, because you can get some leverage on it, and this little plastic holder is pretty well made. I mean, it's pretty solid. It has two buttons right here, and so what you do is you just push the buttons in and you pull, and there's 2 posts on the inside, and it swivels, so you just slide the back of the pad has these straps. Now I cut these because I couldn't figure out how to get the one off that was on there, so I just cut them. But I figured out that those posts swivel, they pivot, and there's a little space underneath, and you can slide these little elastic bands, and then you just close it on the bands, and there you go. And so this is a nice little tool if you're doing doors, or you got a stubborn little spot. You can use the corner, and or maybe just an edge. And so the pouch that this now there's a whole kit, the Woollett Kit, made by Mr. Hardwater. I would say don't buy the pouch, don't buy the kit. The pouch is pretty much for the purposes of a professional window cleaner. It's so small, and it just feels a little, the only way I can describe it is it feels a little fanny packish. It's just a little too like do-it-yourselfer. It's almost the way I would equate it would be like, instead of wearing a tool belt to clean windows, you're wearing one of the Home Depot like canvas pouches instead. It's just not quite up to the level that you want. So I wouldn't spend, I think it's like $44, $45 for the whole kit. If you can just buy this unit by itself, there's a string that comes with it too. I just undid the string because I didn't find that the string had any value and it was actually getting in the way when I was working. And so I just took that off. You can see the two holes where that little stretchy elastic band went in. So, but if you can buy this as this unit, this is a really, really good find, and it's going to serve you well. Those pads also come in bronze wool, and they also come in steel wool, depending on what your preference is. This brings us over to the gripper. This is a good tool, and I would say that the scrubbing power, before we move on, the scrubbing power on these is about, I'd say, a good 7 to 8, 7.5. The scrubbing power on these is probably about a 7 as well. Nice and light, really light, and you can get some good leverage and cover a lot of area with the gripper pad. So this is one that I didn't use a whole lot, but when I did use it, it was pretty good. But again, the issue that you have is it doesn't hold a whole lot of water, so I had to keep re-wetting it. But I mean, that's a small issue because you're going to be wanting to wet the window anyway when you're using an abrasive. But this is a good little tool. I wouldn't rate it as high as the previous ones, but it's not as low as what we're about to talk about. So here we have just like a hand, this is the Wilger, just hand, I forget what they call it, just a hand scrubber, I guess, pad holder. And it doesn't fit on, it's not like a doodle bug, it doesn't fit on a pole. And I guess this would be good if you had to cover a lot of area. Maybe you're doing an initial clean and the windows they don't have any like really heavy debris on them, but you just want to make sure that instead of cleaning it 2 or 3 times, you want to go over the windows first with an abrasive just to, you know, get whatever the heavy stuff off. This is good. And there's a variety of hand scrub holders that you can use. I have steel wool on this one, and I have bronze wool on this one. So, you know, I used these a couple of times, and I realized that because that force is spread out over the whole pad, it wasn't really useful for the purposes of, you know, storefront cleaning, where most of the time you have a specific spot that you're focused in on, trying to get a fingerprint or some dried ketchup or you know, like bug waste or whatever. That's what you're trying to get. But the advantage of these is that if you do put them on, they do make these scrub holders with a pole attachment. And so if you were to put one on one of those and put it at the end of your extension pole, now you can get abrasive action up above your head, which is very useful and necessary sometimes. And so that is the advantage of these. But other than that, I didn't find a whole lot of value in them, but I wasn't doing, you know, construction cleanups or other initial cleans. I'm doing mostly maintenance cleans, so I didn't really have a need for these. So in conclusion, I would strongly encourage you to have an abrasive in your arsenal, or multiple abrasives, because you will always have a need for them. The hidden gems for this series are, number 1, top of the list, the Walnut Scrub Pad. Number 2 would be the Wilger White Pad. Number 3 would be the Woollett block and pad. And then number 4 would be the nylon mesh blue sponge. So I am Jordie. This is the series Hidden Gems. I wish you a good day in your business, and we will talk soon. Stay tuned for the next episode.